Before I begin, I just want to have a little trigger warning that to everyone that this is my opinion, my views, and my criticism over Lucasfilm, Disney, and the Star Wars brand. All clips from interviews, movies, and the TV shows are protected by fair use, as I am criticizing, judging, and sharing my opinions on the topic. If you understand at least the first lines, I hope that you enjoy and understand the message I want to convey. If not, then please read the First Amendment. It's a pretty good read. I have divided this section to 3 parts to help give organization to you and my writing. Please watch all 3 to fully understand my criticism that I will give for part 3, which will cover The Last Jedi and the title of this video. With those 2 messages, I hope that you enjoy my analysis. Star Wars. Everyone watching this knows about it for sure. If not, then why are you here? Go watch the first 6 movies, they're good. But watching in 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, and 6. That's like the correct order to watch them. Anyway, losing track already, and it's not even a full 30 seconds. I love Star Wars. Star Wars has impacted me so much, and it has impacted me so much that I want to become a filmmaker because of Star Wars. And when I was 7 years old and episode 3 came out, I lost my shit over that because it's Star Wars, and episode 3 is my second favorite episode still, right after episode 5. Well, they kind of alternate, but episode 5 is the better movie, but episode 3 shows the downfall of the Republic, and I like the Clone Wars. Doesn't matter, that's not what I'm focusing on. I'm focusing on these movies. The 6 movies that George Lucas directly made. All 6 of these are a piece of art. If you look at 1, 2, and 3 and don't see the artistic value, then you're a pretty shitty Star Wars fan, because the symbolic gesture in 1, 2, and 3 is almost in your face about it. Where episode 1, 2, and 3 falter, that 4 and 5 especially succeed, is they are lacking that entertainment value because they're so focused on the artistic value. Which is not necessarily bad, but as we can see in pop culture, they're the ones who get memed all the time, so you kind of see how that is. But despite that, the artistic nature of these movies derived from George Lucas, and I highly suggest listening to the Charlie Rose interview that George Lucas did, because he really points out his views, but he mostly stated in the interview how much he appreciated mythos. Because back in the Greek and Roman times, the only way to really get a good bedtime story is to remember it, or to make one up. And when you make one up, or if you heard about one, then it would be passed down by mouth, and it would keep going down and down and down the generations, because not many people could read during that time. So mythos was a very important way of storytelling, because it was a huge cornerstone of a society, is the stories and the legends of that certain group of people. And Homer Odyssey comes into mind. And George Lucas was so fascinated by that when he made episode 1, instead of taking a traditional movie style of storytelling, he took the Greek hero's journey instead. And episode 4 fits this perfectly. Luke is called Arms because R2 has a message about the Death Star plans. He gets his mentor Obi-Wan, and they get a helper, Han Solo, to take him to Alderaan, but get foiled and captured by the Empire with the Death Star. So they save the princess, and Obi-Wan dies, having turmoil, joins the rebels, and proves his strength as a Jedi, as stated earlier, and his piloting skills. Keep that in mind, please.
He was the best star pilot in the galaxy, and a cunning warrior. I understand you've become quite a good pilot yourself.
And blows up the Death Star, and everybody celebrates. this kind of storytelling, as George Lucas stated, is a very biological kind of storytelling. We like this symbolic, formulaic storytelling because this is the storytelling that our ancestors did. And George knew that. It grew in popularity. People demanded a sequel, and George knew what he wanted to tell. In the Charlie Rose interview, he actually mentioned how when he originally written it, it was going to be like an opera. And that episode 4, 5, and 6 were just a part of that opera. So already he had this huge vision for Star Wars originally, and he had to take a piece of a piece to make a movie out of it. Although he never got to make these 7, 8, and 9 that he wanted to, he did at least get to tell a saga story about the fall of a father and the rise of a son. Star Wars Episode 3 is a really great story, and it really illustrates Anakin's fall. Even though there are some wonky lines and some poor acting here and there, and the fight with Obi-Wan was a little bit drawn out, the motivations in the set was there, especially illustrated in the Clone Wars series, with Ahsoka leaving as a motivation for Anakin to see the Jedi corruption with not following the code, and that was shattered when he witnessed Mace Windu trying to kill Palpatine. He also saw Count Dooku, a respected Jedi Master who just left the Jedi Order. And more importantly, the Clone Wars. For two reasons. One, seeing the Jedi atrocity and that nobody was following the war during this time of war. And more importantly, that we saw in Episode 3, that after all that he's done for both the Republic and the Jedi Order, he was not a master. He was on the Jedi Council as a Jedi Knight, but not a master. Which this really got under Anakin's nerves, especially when Padme's death vision was coming into fruition. That he was sensing and knowing that Padme was going to die. And that if he can be a Jedi Master, he can gain access to special sensitive data in order to save Padme's life. Even though we kind of all know the dramatic irony of him not needing to do anything, but I digress. Because this was also all coming into fruition with Palpatine's manipulation, kind of feeding him and the rest of the galaxy about how evil the Jedi were. And seeing Count Dooku, who was a Jedi, now a Sith, who was orchestrating the CIS, or the Separatist, Palpatine really drove that during his delivery and his speeches. You can actually see this in the Clone Wars as one of the backgrounds when Ahsoka's running away. And lastly, another thing that kind of made Anakin fall to the dark side was the fact that he was the chosen one. That there was such an immense strain on him becoming more powerful. And going back to the reason why he wasn't becoming a Jedi Master, this really pissed him off. Because he knew he was the chosen one, but the council wasn't letting him gain that power. All these things are pretty convincing and pretty, to an extent, justifiable. Not killing children justifiable, but justifiable to at least betray the Jedi, or, like Count Dooku, leave the Jedi. Especially that in Legends material there was a citation that not many Jedi Masters left after that. So the Jedi Order could have made Anakin stay in the light if they just granted him Jedi Master. But, screw Mace Windu, you dumb piece of cunt. Luke. Then we go to Luke. Luke faced his own turmoils. He witnessed his aunt and uncle die. He witnessed his mentor Obi-Wan die. And during his few months of training with Yoda, the visions of Han and Leia being in trouble, and Chewie and C-3PO also got to him. He almost fell into the dark side in episode 6 when he was taking out all of his anger in Vader when Vader said that he will change Leia. And his turn to the dark side would have been justified, but he didn't. Just like his black clothes having a white lining on the inside, there was still good in him. There was enough good in Luke that he didn't fall into the temptation of becoming part of the Sith. And this shone of light of giving up his life in order to face evil is what turned Anakin back into the light side and got him to live on as a Jedi Force ghost. This dynamic between Anakin's fall and Luke's redemption, nearing his own fall, is a great contrast. No matter how poorly written the prequels are, you can at least admire that George had these 6 movies to complement each other. When I watch these 6 movies, I have a sense of appreciation for that. That no matter if I watch the magnificent episode 5 or the drawn out episode 2, that through the flaws and success, Star Wars led to innovation and resonating with everyone. No matter your past experience, your beliefs, your religious affiliation, or even a reflection of human history. These films in my eyes are a masterpiece, and 6 films I want my children themselves to watch and let them think on their own and explore a world with an open eye, with an open mind, and yet remembering who we are and who we came from, and how important a family is, and how important faith is. I just want to emphasize on one thing before this part begins. I'm not really going to talk about Rogue One because, other than the fact that I don't like it, the only redeeming quality is Darth Vader, it's not as important as Episode 7. Episode 7 is a lot more monumental on Disney's betrayal of the Star Wars brand, just to let you know. To say I was excited about Episode 7 would be a complete lie. Episode 7 got everyone excited. Come on, this is another trilogy in the Star Wars universe 10 years after the prequels, especially that not many people like the prequels. Me, personally, I love the prequels. I think the narrative is great, and I like a lot of what the prequel is trying to say, and I really, really believe that the Clone Wars redeems the prequels. But I will admit, the dialogue is not on par with the original trilogy, and the acting from Hayden Christensen in Episode 2 was really, really bad, except for that Tusken Raider scene that was just flat out awesome, and a really monumental moment of Vader's turn. But with that stated, people were excited, and I was excited. My initial thought was Disney was going to take everything from Legends and fix it. That's why they decanonized everything from Legends. But after the first trailer, it was obvious that that's not their goal. Their goal is to make their own original story, which I was okay with at first, because I was like, hey, as long as it's a good story, it's totally fine. Now, 2015 was a monumental moment. This was the time that I really started buckling down and really started to write my own universe for my own movie and game that I want to do as a career. So I started looking at film at more critical level. And as you know, I hold the original 6 movies on high regards. So when I sat in theater, I was completely enthralled. I thought this was great. And I noticed upon later reviews that the only reason why I liked the first half of the movie was because it was plucking on your nostalgia strings. No joke, please. Try watching episode 7 objectively and tell me it's a good movie, because you can't. And what really shattered my nostalgia strings was when the Republic was destroyed, when the First Order fired upon a Coruscant-like planet. Now I know that people in the comments say, but it wasn't Coruscant, but with no context at all. Anybody who's watched any of the 6 movies would think that's Coruscant. And being a fan of the prequels was a big slap in the face. And I have noticed a few jarring problems with episode 7, mostly relating to Rey. And a lot of plot holes, but Rey is the main one. She is hands down a Mary Sue. There is no reason to say that as sexist to say that she's a Mary Sue, because it's not. Mary Sue simply means that she is an overpowered character with no flat-out explanation whatsoever. This is poor writing. Luke and Anakin are not Mary Sues because they have flaws and their strengths are justified. For example, Luke can fly an X-Wing because Obi-Wan threw out that he learned that he's a good pilot. So, when we see him in the X-Wing, it makes sense because Obi-Wan pointed it out. Anakin in the pod racer and saying that he wants to be a pilot are indications that when he gets into the Naboo starfighter that he is skilled enough to be in it. Rey does not have this. She jumps into a Millennium Falcon like no big deal. She crashes 2 times, but that's it. Then she starts flying it like nobody's business. Not to mention she fixes the freaking ship before Han can even figure out what's wrong with it. See, this could be simply fixed by 2 things. 1, a throwaway line, just like Luke. And 2, maybe instead of just scavenging you show her do, she can also be working on the ship for the fat guy giving her the rations. That would establish why she knows about the Millennium Falcon so well. But no, it's only thrown out because of plot reasons and we need a pilot now. And the biggest issues that I have is her using the Force and using a lightsaber. Now, going back to 1 and 4, Luke and Anakin don't use the Force in those movies. The closest thing they use to the Force is their hypersensitivity and fast reflexes, which now in the movies is saying that it is a passive Force power, that a Force user will have faster reflexes and higher sensitivity. They could have done that for Rey to possibly escape to fight another day, to possibly be doing whatever. But they had to tack on Mind Trick, which took Luke 3 movies to do, and they tack on her the lightsaber from Kylo Ren. But they didn't that. Kylo Ren couldn't pull the lightsaber because he was so focused on his pain. Blah blah blah. I'm aware that says in the book, but come on. You're telling me that a Dark Jedi who's been training for over 10 years can't pull a lightsaber from a person who didn't even know who Luke Skywalker was and thought he was a legend? Jeez, this is bad writing. Not to mention, as established in the past movies, and actually establishes in this movie, that Kylo was using his pain to increase his power. So, if anything, Kylo should be stronger when he's beating on his chest. Otherwise, he would have been ignoring it. Or because he's not a Sith and uses pure dark side energy, you could have shown him healing himself. But no, the movie just says that Mary Sue Rey is more powerful than him. This doesn't make any sense. If we just had a movie where she didn't know anything and she only used her sensitivity to get out of danger or do whatever, then this wouldn't be a problem. But now you got a character who didn't know what the Force was, using the Force and beating him with the lightsaber, which, by the way, is established that she knows how to use a staff. A staff is not the same as a lightsaber. Completely different. Now, if I could fix this movie in only like 5 steps, one step would be don't give her Anakin's lightsaber. give her a Jedi Temple guard staff. Now, would it be a bit jarring? Yes, but during your little flashback montage, you could have shown the Jedi Temple guard holding that staff and possibly being beaten by Anakin. That would have been great. That would have tied in the prequels just fine instead of giving us a slap in the face. That would have been a lot more plausible to show her with the staff and actually have a chance of beating Kylo, especially that he's being incompetent and can't kill her in time or take her or whatever Snoke wanted him to do to her. So, but no, she gets a lightsaber and she can beat Kylo with a lightsaber, which, by the way, why does the lightsaber have weight? It's made from plasma. Plasma doesn't have weight. Okay, we're just going to throw logic out the window. We already got a Mary Sue character, so what else are we going to do? Ugh. And I'm not even going to get into like how useless Finn is. Like, come on. Don't you dare tell me he's useful. I will tell you the two things that he does that are useful. One, he breaks Poe out of prison, which originally Poe was supposed to die. So I'm going to give him even just a half point about that because Jar Jar Abrams just changed the script willy-nilly. And the second thing is to direct Han to the tractor beam in order to let the resistance in, which you could have just given that to anybody. Maybe even BB-8. Like, BB-8 could have held both Luke's map and Starkiller base map. That would have made some sense and a callback to episode 4, but no, we need the black guy to do it because we need a black guy in this movie. The fact that Finn only does two things really, really shows that his character is really useless, which it really sucks because this movie wants to be inclusive, but gives the black guy a completely useless role. Like, come on, I'm aware that Lando wasn't in episode 5 that much, but he has an astronomically more important role. You can't take him out and expect episode 5 to play the same. You could take Finn out and toss one of his major things to somebody else. Bada bing, bada boom, the movie would be the same. And also, speaking of men, Kylo is completely a whiny character to the point that you don't even fear him. Yeah, sure, you fear him in the beginning, but after being beaten by Rey, doing a temper tantrum, and that whole reveal of him in his mask, he's just a laughable guy. Like, come on, I can't. If he's the Darth Vader guy, then please don't make him an emo millennial. Our generation's already messed up. Don't personify it into a Darth Vader surrogate because that just makes your movie laughable. And there are some plot holes, like not too many, but like the script is apparently not completely finished. Like this might have been like a third draft when it needed a fourth one to be finalized, kind of stuff. Like the plot is we got to go find Luke, and then we got to go. And then Starkiller Base or Death Star 3 comes up, and then we focus on that. And after that gets destroyed, they're like, oh crap, we forgot Luke. And then they do that. Like, you could have both, but in order to forget about Luke's path is a little bit of a, huh? And I really do think that the men in this movie are completely underutilized. Like, come on, Luke doesn't even say a line. Han is just moping and grubbing around. Yeah, sure, Harrison Ford isn't as bad as he is in some other movies that he's in, but it's obvious that he doesn't want to be in this movie. And to have him just there, like, yeah, sure, he's a father figure to Rey, and yeah, he has some good lines, but really, you could take him out of this movie too. And that's my problem. You could take so many of these characters out, and the movie wouldn't really be affected. Like, that's kind of an issue. But overall, this movie is nothing but a nostalgic train with a Mary Sue as the main character. It has its problems, but overall can be enjoyable. But because of that disappointing first movie, that didn't make me excited for Rogue One. And to briefly summarize, when you have a flat character that doesn't make any decisions in order to fill a quest, it's really it's a really boring film, especially how bitchy Jenna Erso is. She just mopes around in this whole movie expecting nothing. That is just poor character development. And I heard the argument of, but she doesn't need to be an Evolution character. She could be a flat character. But the fact is that this is the group of rebels that got the Death Star plans. Obviously, their choices should matter for the rebels' existence and rebels being alive. But yet, Jen does nothing impactful to this movie. She's just on a roller coaster to her death at the very end of the movie. And people do say Rogue One is the better movie, but I can't find any freaking enjoyment when the character is not relatable, much less entertaining. It's a boring movie. I watched this movie 3 times and got bored on my first one. I only watched the other 2 because I was going to make a review of it. But that didn't happen. Come on, just give me more Vader scenes. That really entertained the crap out of me. In fact, fun fact, I was working at a theater around that time, and I would request to go clean that theater every time just so I could watch the Vader scene. Trust me, I watched that baby 30 times. Vader could stick his lightsaber in. Oh crap, I have a third part to this. Is this what you want? Huh? Is this what you want, Rian Johnson? You want to make a movie so bad that to capture my audience, I have to become the meme? Ironically, I had more stuff to show with that little skit, but my phone broke before I could even finish that. Like, no joke, it fell and now the screen's completely cracked. I think this movie hates me just as much as I hate it. So, The Last Jedi. This is the worst movie I've ever seen. And I've watched the Emoji Movie. Why are they giving Rian Johnson a trilogy? Because this movie is full of nothing but plot holes, completely useless, dumb, overpowered characters that completely destroy the narrative. There is no redeeming quality of this movie. There's no theme. There is no this that doesn't have a political agenda. Star Wars has never been about political agendas. Star Wars has always been an escapism. Heck, even the prequels, even though they have Star Wars politics in it, the great thing about it is you can turn off your brain, go watch episode 1, listen to all the politics, and you can't relate to it at all. It is too alien for you to understand when a planet gets taken over by a company and you have to wait on the Senate in order to defend them. Or having a leader in the Clone Wars telling you that the monks that you've been trusting for over 1,000 years are really the bad guys and we should blame everything on them. You can't relate to that. Because that's alien. That's Star Wars. That is something that you can escape to. And that was great. Everybody on every political atmosphere likes Star Wars because it doesn't revolve around our real world. Yet, Episode 8 is completely left-wing. You can only enjoy this movie if you are a radical liberal like Antifa or BLM. And even then you can't really enjoy it because Finn's a useless character. Okay. The point I'm just trying to make right now is no matter what you believe in, that this movie's bias completely alienates it if you are not part of this crowd. You're splitting the fan base more than it's being split right now, which is really, really a shame. So quickly, let's go through all the issues. Finn is completely useless. He does a little side quest with the Asian chick. They go to a casino planet. He's excited, but Rose has to tell him that he's being a bad boy and not think about the poor little animals, and that the animals have feelings too, and that we need to save them. And after they go free the animals, then they find a code breaker, and then the code breaker then go on the bad guy ship, where they're going to turn off the tracker in order to save the rebels. OMG. Finally, this plot actually has something useful, and they get caught. They're about to be executed by Phasma, and then they kill Phasma. Don't worry, she'll be back for episode 9. Then they go on Hoth, where the other rebels are, and then they do nothing but fly around. Like, if you really pay attention, those stone speeders don't do anything in the battle. It's really funny. Anyway, so Finn takes it upon himself to sacrifice himself to save all of his friends, which is really great. This is the plot. The only small little thing that this character's ever got in the first movie, he was being a coward, but now he's facing his fears, facing the First Order, gonna sacrifice himself in order to save everyone. This is great. This is amazing. You're gonna end this movie with a big loss, and the rebels are gonna live on, and Rose saves him. The second Rose saves him, everything between these two characters is completely void. I'm aware that these two characters are here simply to be inclusive, but no joke. You were insulting the Black and Asian community far more by giving these two characters the most useless subplot with no payout whatsoever. It's amazing. It is amazing that you justify this as good and inclusive. God, I need a drink. Anyway, but that brings me to Poe. Poe has a little plot with purple hair feminist girl, and where he's like, "Yo, so Leia's knocked out. What's the plan?" But the almighty feminist girl, she's too mighty, too smart, too wise for Poe to wrap his little flyboy brain around. And she says, "You gotta be patient. Don't worry about the plan. I got it." He asks 3 times, and she says nothing. In fact, she actually kicks him out of the bridge. To the point that Poe is like, "You're just running away, we're gonna run out of fuel, and then you're gonna kill us all." So, being a logical man, he sets up a mutiny. He does a mutiny. And then he takes over the bridge, and then he's communicating with Poe and Finn, and this is the time that they're about to take out the tracker. Everything was going to plan, and then Leia wakes up and stuns him. And then purple hair feminist and Leia laugh and joke about Poe and how he's that he's a hothead, and hardy har, ain't that great? Ain't he just a funny old pal? No. And then he wakes up, he's panicking, he's like, "I can't believe that this stupid plan is going on." And then Leia sits down with him, and she tells him what the plan was the whole time. And he agrees to it. Once again, you completely wasted our time. No joke. If Poe went up there the first time and said, "What's the plan?" she could have told him, and then he would have been like, "All right, I like that plan." And boom, no conflict whatsoever. But the movie has to bash Poe and treat him like the dummy he is. Have you noticed a pattern? Both of our men protagonists are portrayed as idiots. They are treated like idiots in this movie. It baffles me. It freaking baffles me. Especially that the majority of Star Wars fans are men, and you do this? Wow, you really want to drop your numbers in the box office, don't you? Holy crap, what the heck is going on? Which brings me to Rey and Luke. On a completely film level, they butchered Luke. Luke's journey between 4 and 6 was that he's the optimist. He looks at the positive things in life, and he had to work his way up to become a Jedi. And that actually at the end of episode 6, he was saying throughout the whole movie, there's good in Vader, there's good in Vader, there's good in Vader, guys, there's good in Vader. And Obi-Wan and Yoda, who were supposed to be wiser than him, said that there's not, that you gotta kill him. And then he proves them wrong as he's giving his life up, as Palpatine is shocking him, and Vader, being his father, puts family above his mentor, who has abused him all this time. And he kills his mentor in order to save his son. Anakin is redeemed by this act. But the movie wants you to believe that Luke completely forgets what he was saying in episode 6, that he read Kylo's mind, saw all that darkness within him, and for a split second that he wanted to kill him. No, nobody can believe that. I'm not even saying this as a Star Wars fan, I'm saying this as a movie fan. I'm saying this as somebody who wants a good movie. You completely don't take into account that this is 20 to 30 to 40 years later into the future. So Luke will be older, he would be wiser, and he would have learned from episode 6 that there's good in about everybody. That Vader, a person who murdered children, can be redeemed. So Kylo, who was only talking to Snoke as far as we know by that point, could have been redeemed. He could have sat in his hut and waited till the morning and then have a one-on-one, uncle and nephew talk, and then boom, everything from episode 7, 8, and 9 could have been avoided. But no, Rian Johnson sets up his pieces even though they don't belong there. It's like a chess game. That has some sets, but Rian Johnson moves everything out of the way and says, okay, let's start the game. Oh my freaking gosh. You completely ruined Luke's character for the plot. And then he's a grumpy old hermit, and he has the same philosophy as the Jedi in 1, 2, and 3. Wanting to cast out all evil. And, that also led to the downfall because the Jedi Order at that time was like, no dark side. Yet, in Legends, Luke actually kind of embraced part of the dark side, and he was teaching his students to be more like gray Jedi, not shy away from the dark side, but use it in order to straighten your side in the light. But in this movie, he's taken every single mistake as 1, 2, and 3. Oh my god. Are these people not considering 1, 2, and 3 as canon? Like, they have to. They actually mention Palpatine's rise in the Senate in this movie. But it... What? I can't make sense of this. Oh my gosh. And what makes it worse is that Luke is being all grumpy, saying there's no redeeming Kylo. And then you got the Mary Sue from the last movie telling him, you're wrong, Luke. There's good in Kylo. There's good in Kylo. Remember episode 6? On me right now. Oh my god. Why didn't anybody think this was a good idea? why? And it helps to know that Mark Hamill agrees. He agrees with everybody's criticism with Luke. They try to shut him up, but he's basically said to everybody that he doesn't agree with what Luke said. Holy crap! It's like they want 4, 5, and 6 to exist, but they also don't want 4, 5, and 6 to exist. Why? You make such a conflicting character. When I was looking up on the screen, sure, Mark Hamill looked like Luke Skywalker, but he didn't act like Luke Skywalker. And, you know, the only exciting thing about this movie that people will tell you is, well, the scenes with Luke and Rey are exciting. He doesn't train her. And yeah, I know in the comments they'll be like, yeah, but he had those 3 lessons and he taught 2 of them. Newsflash. Lesson 1 was something that you would teach pre-K Jedi younglings during the Clone Wars time era, the prequel times. This is something that you would teach your 4-year-old student what to do. He basically told her how to tap into the Force. That's it. That's it. Not explaining the bad of the dark side, not explaining the good light side. No, just saying this is the Force. Do you feel the Force? And then when she taps into the dark side, then he runs away. He scurries off. Like, no joke, scurries off. What? And then lesson 2 is, like I said a bit earlier, he's telling the story of how Darth Vader got to rise. And it's really funny that he knows that story, which I'm pretty sure that's how Obi-Wan and Anakin would have told him, so there's no surprise that he would know that. But the fact that he knows that, yet he still believes the same way that his old master did. Oh my gosh. And then lesson 3 does not happen at all. Like, what? So you have these 3 lessons, Luke, and then you only teach 2 of them? And they're not even good lessons? And then Rey leaves away with absolutely no training. She goes and confronts Kylo. Kylo kills Snoke for the dumbest reason possible. And then they go into a fight with the Gregorian Red Guards that you kept seeing in the trailers. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, they better die. Oh, no, they don't. With the power of Mary Sue and plot armor, they survive. You know, in my second part, how I mentioned it would have made more sense if she had a staff? It would have made more sense in this moment if she had a staff. Oh my gosh, but they don't even do the decency of that. And then Kylo's like, join me, just like in the trailer, and then you're left to think, oh, they're gonna join, and then, no, of course not. Even though this movie up to this point has been doing everything that's not the typical thing about the Star Wars movie, they go the most safe Star Wars-like thing possible, where the main character rejects it, and then they try to get Anakin's lightsaber, and then it breaks, and then they get knocked out, and then Rey runs away without killing Kylo. I think the Ben Swallow meme, that little scene there, I think ever since that moment that Rey only wants to go to the light side so they can have intercourse. I'm convinced about that. I know what Rey's weakness is now. It's Kylo. I swear. If in episode 9, if Kylo takes off everything, shows his big dick, then oh my gosh, the movie gets to end, and then they get to have babies. Because that's obvious what Rey wants. I want to see that on DeviantArt now. Anyway. So Rey loses Anakin's lightsaber because it breaks, and then at the very end of the movie, Princess Leia and Rey are sitting there, and Rey is like, what do we do? What about building it? And then Leia says something about, oh, we have everything we need. And it's like, You got 30 people in the Millennium Falcon and a broken lightsaber. Quay? Oh my gosh. Like, all these characters are idiots. Oh yeah, and not to mention Luke completely dies in the dumbest way possible by projecting himself, and then after that projection he just dies. Like, if he was gonna die, then how about he just Obi-Wan did? Like, that would have been a whole lot better than him being projected and then turning into a Force ghost. But no, we need that sweet plot twist. Which, speaking of the plot, there's so many freaking holes. Like, why is the Resistance so weak if they were funded by the Republic? Like, you can explain that in the crawl. Ironically, you could say probably the underfunded. If you just said the underfunded Resistance is now struggling to get away from the First Order, boom. You just could have told us, but not even that. Just the Resistance a whole lot weaker than the First Order. Which, by the way, how big is the First Order? Are they bigger? Are they smaller? Like, how big are they? Like, what makes them a threat? Yeah, they have Starkiller Base, but obviously Starkiller Base is not their only big thing. If they have a giant big ship that Snoke controls. Why is Snoke so important? Because at least in 4, 5, and 6, the importance of Palpatine was to tell Vader bring Luke to him, and then Vader does bring Luke to him, and then he wants to convince Luke to turn to the dark side, and you can tell that he's in charge of Luke, which also explains why Vader does XYZ in 5 and 6. See, Palpatine doesn't have much of a line, but compared to Snoke, he's a whole lot more useful. Snoke basically tells Kylo to bring Rey to him, and then Rey comes over there, and you think, oh man, he's gonna try to convince her to go to the dark side. No. He wants to kill her. Which doesn't make any sense, because in the first movie he was hinting at like that she had some importance, and obviously they both know that they don't know where Luke is. So for him to say in this movie that I'm gonna kill you and after you tell me where Luke is, it's like, but in episode 7 she didn't even know where Luke was. Continuity makes sense. Oh my gosh. Also, if Snoke wasn't important at all, then why put him in the movie? Like, really? Like, there are so many moments in this freaking movie where they don't follow Chekhov's gun, where you put it in chapter 2, but then in chapter 4 you use it. This movie puts the gun in chapter 2, but then leaves it there. That's really bad story writing. Why is Hux a complete and total coward and kind of a sissy in this movie? Like, no joke, in the first movie he was kind of intimidating. He was like, oh crap, that dude's pretty bad. I can see him being the grandson of Tarkin. Now in this movie, he whines and he complains, and it's like, I don't get my way. And then he talks about how Kylo is being mean to him, and then he gets force choked, and now he's submitting to Kylo. Like, come on, you had something building up between these two in the first movie, and now Hux is just there. He's just our Nazi guy, you know? Because Nazis are bad, right? Yeah. Also, why do you keep on insisting on putting new aliens in the backgrounds when you could have reused some aliens? Like, not only were the costumes you own Lucasfilms, but that would have totally united these movies. See, you saw Rhodians, and you saw especially Twi'leks in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 to unite the universe. And you know that Rhodians are everywhere, and Twi'leks. In fact, you could have had a Twi'lek sex slave, on Canto Bight, but you don't. You insist on showing off and having completely new aliens, which doesn't make any sense. Because, no joke, the Canto Bight scene did not feel like Star Wars. Not only did it feel too much like Earth, but it felt too much not like Star Wars. Because you have no notable aliens. Come on, Rhodians, Twi'leks, by that point, you could have thrown in a hut. Just a little eye candy so we know that this is the same universe that we grew up watching. Oh, there is so much wrong. I can go into so much more details. What makes this movie bad? But I think I got the point across. And he's not sponsoring me, but I totally suggest going and checking out this YouTube channel I just found. His name's Mauler. And he goes by every single second of what's wrong with this movie. And he's as objective as possible. Oh my gosh. This guy deserves a freaking medal because of how great that he lays down everything. Did his review, did his little analysis affect this? No, it did not. I had my own thoughts about this walking out of the theater the first time. And knowing that this movie had so many problems and had such a big left-wing agenda to it is really concerning. It's really bad when you have episode 7 copy and paste and have a Mary Sue that episode 8 could have fixed, and it's bad enough that Rogue One had a flat character, but to an extent they were at least enjoyable. They were at least enjoyable and had the Star Wars spirit in them. This movie doesn't do that. Rian Johnson has taken so much, and there is overwhelming evidence. In fact, Mark Hamill said that he was like, "Hey Ryan, you should probably consider the fans," and Ryan said, "No, we're going to focus on the script." Ryan has stated in so many things that he was trying to be as shock value as possible. He wanted to undermine things that we know about Star Wars. He wanted to introduce new things. New things are great. Innovating old properties to adapt to the new is completely right. But completely changing it, you're gonna lose fans. You're gonna lose people that like this, that like these movies, that like these series, by completely not satisfying them. And not to mention, what I'm trying to get at is even just looking at this movie on a critical level. You failed at that, Ryan. You failed at making a good movie. There's too many plot holes. Rey is even more so a Mary Sue than the first movie. You don't respect the original 6 movies, especially original 3 movies with LucasArts, even though you say, "I grew up as a Star Wars fan," when obviously you don't care. Mahler pointed out that Ryan obviously looked at a chessboard, looked at the pieces and rearranged it and started telling the story that way. That is what happened. He completely undermines us as the fan. He wants the shock value. He wants us to go into the theater being like, what the heck? And our first impulse is to naturally hate it. And I don't like seeing these people that are like, well, after the third time, you start to enjoy it because you know what's going to happen. No. Not when there's this many problems with it. You can't create a good story when you're missing so much details. Important details. You know, this movie actually missed out on a few things that original 6 movies had. The original 6 movie had moments where characters got to talk, to deepen the lore. There's nothing here. They focus on the action, they focus on the high-end budget visuals, but the story and the substance and the lore is thrown out the window. They're too scared of introducing the politics of the universe because people don't like the prequels, when obviously 4, 5, and 6 not only had the politics, but at least used it sparingly enough that people don't mind it and actually like it. The scene with Tarkin in episode 4, where they're in the council room talking about the old Republic Senate being dissolved, that's huge. That shows that the Death Star and the Emperor has absolute control by this point. that the rebels are fighting against a tyrannical government with no representation. This movie doesn't. This movie tells you that the resistance is weakening the First Order with no logical reasoning. It says that you need to care about these characters, but they don't do anything. They try to fill out the script as much as they can, but they don't have any substance to them. Sure, Rose had her one scene about telling her childhood past with her sister, but that's the only thing. And you don't even care about her, much less her little segment. There's nothing about Rey growing up in Jakku. There's nothing about how Luke lived on the island, or how he thought before Kylo turned to the dark side. There's none of that. Everything that is there is only to move the plot, or attempt to move the plot forward, but it falls on his face. I'm sorry. This movie is objectively bad. You cannot convince me that this movie, as a movie, is good. Go watch episode 5. Pay attention to every single detail that George Lucas puts into that movie, and that the amazing director that I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, that directed episode 5 can give you a complete story, complete to the point that you don't even need to watch episode 4. This movie depends on you watching episode 7, watching the other movies, and even then you gotta throw logic out the window in order to enjoy this. I cannot do that. I always saw Star Wars as an intellectual property. It has its faults, it has its downsides, it has its bad dialogue, bad acting, bad whatever, but at least it has a lore and a universe that is expansive. It has substance that if you want to, you can go and find out more, that these movies are still good to the point you can watch them by themselves. You can watch episode 2 and not watch any of the other movies and get what's going on. You can go watch episode 6 without watching 4 and 5 and know what's going on. You watch episode 8, you are even more lost than people who've already watched all these movies. I am sorry. Rian Johnson, you are an incompetent director. You do not know how to make a good film, much less a Star Wars film. Kathleen Kennedy, you are a crazy feminist that puts your agenda, puts your vagina ahead of the fans, who are obviously mostly men. I am totally fine with you trying to reach out to a female audience, but the way you're doing it is alienating the established fans. You guys are doing what 343 is doing and completely changing things to the way that you want it because you don't like what has already been established, when all you needed to do was keep the momentum going, and time and its course would have produced more money on the way through, but you didn't. Your foresight, your bias, your political agenda, everything that is your shortcoming is reflected in this movie. This movie has made me lost faith in Disney. 3 strikes, I'm out. Screw you, Disney. Screw you, Kathleen Kennedy. Screw you, Rian Johnson. I know that your trilogy is going to fail, and Kathleen Kennedy, if Han Solo fails just as bad as this movie does, you will get fired. I hope you know that. And as bad as it is to wish upon bad luck to these people, I'm not doing that because I'm trying to take the moral high ground. I'm just warning you. Rian Johnson, Kathleen Kennedy, your job is on the line because of this failure of a movie. Goodbye, good night. If you made it this far, thanks in advance. I do want to say I really do appreciate you stick it around to the very end, and I hope that you at least understand where I'm coming from. I really do hold these movies in high regards, and episode 8 was a complete and utter failure. And if you are interested in subscribing, I try to do my best to provide a quality of content ranging from skits to reviews to more that I want to do during the summer. Just please understand that I am a college student at this time, and that the spring semester is my main focus right now. As for anybody who probably saw me in the comments and decided to watch this because you're bored or at least want to understand where I'm coming from, I hope that you can at least consider that this is my opinion, and on the comments that is also my opinion. We can be as civil as possible, and with that stated, how about you comment below and we can have a nice friendly discussion. We're Star Wars fans. It's not gonna be nice. So, with that all stated, as always, I was Desline, you were the audience, and catch you next video. See ya.